Hello guys, it's Ryan Ho back with another video. Today I'm going to review and compare these three headphones together. So we have the Hifiman XS, and then we have the Sennheiser HD58x, and then we have the Hifiman He-6 sev2. Now, I already did a video comparing the Hifiman XS to the Sundara, so you can check out the main review of the XS for that comparison. But for this video, we're only gonna do these three headphones. So the XS is kind of the big planar, right? And this is the latest headphone that comes in at a price of $500. This headphone comes in around $200, so it's the cheapest of the bunch here. And then this headphone, if you get it on Adorama for deal, it's around $650. So these two headphones are kind of the same brand and they're kind of similarly priced. So that will be an interesting comparison. So these headphones, the first thing is just like, what can you run them off of, like power wise? And essentially this headphone needs like an amplifier for sure, because you need a lot of power to run this headphone. These two, you can run it off like an iPhone dongle or whatever you have. They should work off most things, so you won't have to worry about that. But yeah, so let's just get into like the build, the weight, the sound quality, and deciding which one you guys would enjoy on this table. And as always, please like and subscribe down below. Helps my videos out. If you guys want to see more content like this, you should definitely subscribe. And lastly, I want to thank A-Post Audio for setting out the Hifiman XS for me to review and to kind of compare for you guys. So, all right, so we have these three headphones on the table. So the thing before you even talk about sound is the weight of the headphone and how they feel in the head. I think the XS is the biggest ear cup, so any ear is gonna fit. I find it super comfortable with not much clamp force at all. The padding on top is very sufficient in my opinion, and I don't really have any hot spots. So this headphone to me is probably the most comfortable, is what I'm gonna say, because it could fit in the ears, and like I said, there's no clampiness that the HD58x has. Like, this headphone is the lightest one, so if you're looking for lightweight, this is definitely the winner because it's completely plastic build with only kind of these middle yokes right here. But besides that, it's very lightweight, and it has these kind of nice soft pads that are breathable. I mean, they all have pretty breathable pads, so I don't think that's an issue. But this headphone does have a clamp that's very strong that the other two headphones don't have, so that might be a concern for some people. But this one could be the contender for definitely the second most comfortable. I think this and the XS are kind of fighting for it. The XS weighs like about 400 grams, so it's definitely a little heavier. And then this is probably the least comfortable, which is the He-6 SE, only because it's like 500 grams. So it's definitely kind of a neck workout, and you're definitely gonna feel that. But it doesn't have much of a clamp force. And maybe some people might get hot spot on top because it's a little heavier. So it definitely kind of weighs down on you a little bit more. But when it comes to kind of the build quality of this headphone, it's, they have metal yokes right here, and then inside here, and then overall, I think it's a really good looking headphone, and they also have these nice metal grills. So I do think it's kind of built with better materials than the Sennheiser, but it's definitely the heaviest boy on the table. So my conclusion really is I do think the XS is probably one that fit most people. The Sennheiser would be second, and this one would be third. All right, so now let's talk about sound and how they compare, right? So starting with the cheapest one, which would be the HD58x, I think the 58x has the best tuning of the headphones on the table, in my opinion. Like, if you like listening to just modern genres with a lot of bass, the 58x has a pretty good bass quantity, and you can definitely hear it more than these other two headphones, or which are more kind of neutral flats, so a little bit more boring than this headphone, as well as just this mid-range of this headphone where it comes to like the vocalist, the male, female vocalist. It just sounds honestly just perfect. Like, your presence is very well known, and just you can hear everything, and it's just exactly where it should be. And I think that's one of the good things about this headphone. And then the treble is very well controlled. You don't hear any like sharpness or anything at all. And so when it comes to just the tuning, I think this has the best tuning. But we'll talk about some of its shortcomings, in my opinion, in the future. But when it comes to this tuning, I do think this is the best. Now, if we move on to the XS, I think when you talk about tuning wise, I do think this headphone has less bass than the 58X. However, it has much better bass quality. In general, there's much more resolution detail than the 58X. I mean, it is $300 more expensive than the headphone, so you hopefully get a lot more. And I do think that this headphone resolves in a different level. Like, it's not really close at all. Like, if someone listens to these side by side, they would definitely hear the difference between them. And yeah, everything just sounds a lot cleaner and clear, and it's kind of insane when you put these side by side. Now, the mid-range of these headphones, I think, is pretty similar in the quantity, like where you can hear the instruments come out pretty well, pretty present, and I don't really feel like it's that bad. I think the Hifiman is a little bit step back, like very little. I think most people won't even notice it, to be honest, but obviously because I listen to these headphones and do these comparisons all the time, I can hear it. And the treble, though, is definitely the biggest difference. I do think the XS has, honestly, it sounds more detailed because it has a treble emphasis, and I think a lot of people will catch on to that. However, the flip side is because there's a treble emphasis, it could get a little tiresome and fatiguing, where this headphone never feels that way. This headphone to me always feels nice and comfortable to listen to. So that's the flip side of that. Now, moving on to the last one, we have the He-6 SE. And this headphone to me probably slots in between these two headphones. I would say it's kind of the happy medium between these headphones, because when it comes to the bass, this has really good bass quality. And when it comes to kind of the sub bass, where I think the XS does lack a little bit of the sub bass region, I mean, as well as this headphone as well, but this headphone kind of has better sub bass presence, but not the same quantity as this headphone, but it has much better quality bass than the 58X. So I do think this kind of has the quality and quantity kind of equation kind of figured out. Now, when it comes to the mid-range, I do think this headphone is the worst on the table in the sense of like the kind of where you hear it. Things do sound far away, but at the same time, like, some people like that. Like, they like hearing the vocals a little bit more separated. It makes the kind of what people call sound stage, how far things sound, bigger. So I think in some senses, some people might actually like their vocals not really very close and intimate, but like a little bit further away. So that could be a preference thing as well. And that is what the Hifiman has, which I would consider a hole in the mid-range. Now, we go into kind of the treble, the upper frequencies, right? This headphone to me is more refined than the XS. I think the XS has, like I said, a little bit of a treble emphasis and a little fatiguing, versus I think this headphone, when it comes to just the treble in general, there's a little bit of an emphasis in like kind of where the female vocalists are a little bit, just a little bit, but like in the kind of the higher treble where this headphone really does have an emphasis, this does not have that. It sounds pretty smooth and clean up there. But it has that like really nice resolving capability that the 58X does not have. Like, the treble performance between these two headphones is like night and day. Like, this headphone just sounds so much cleaner and clearer than the 58X. It's just really no comparison. I think it's just the technology differences of planar, this dynamic, and it's just a more expensive product as well. So it is more refined in my opinion. After talking about tuning, there's other things that matter, right? So the other thing is, what I always talk about with this XS is like the driver size. Like, literally this whole grill is the driver. Like, literally, this is huge. The 58X has a 38 millimeter driver. It's literally like the center right here. It's like a little circle right here. It's very small. And when you listen to it, it has a big influence on how big things sound, how far they sound, and basically the sound stage of how kind of sounds coming around you. So this headphone, everything sounds like it's above you, below you, around you. It's like far away as well. And things just sound massive, and they sound like speakers. And that's the experience you get from this headphone. Versus this one is more intimate. Like, everything sounds like it's right next to you. It just sounds like a headphone, like a normal headphone sounds like, right? And you just get a very headphone-like experience. However, there's like, you know, some people might actually like that. I think in some regards, I like the way this sounds, because when I listen to this headphone, it sounds like the singer is like right next to me and they're sitting right next to me. Versus like when I'm listening to this headphone, it sounds like speakers, but like, do you want to be listening to speakers, or do you want to have the singer like right in front of you, like a live performance in front of you? 3 feet away, 4 feet away, right? That's kind of like what this sounds like. Versus this sounds like, yeah, you're listening to it as speakers. And if you like the way speakers sound, then of course you're going to like this sound better, right? And then this is kind of slots in the middle. It's not as tall, as big as the XS, but it still has a really good sound stage, and it definitely sounds further away than the 58X. So like I said, this kind of slots in the middle where I think it belongs when it comes to just kind of how big and vast things sound. When you kind of combine everything together and what you hear in the experience, I think it's really interesting that this headphone has, like I said, the best tuning, but the sound stage is also smaller, so more intimate. But I think where it kind of chokes, I guess, is just the resolution. But I mean, at this price point, it's kind of to expect there. At $200, it actually has good resolution for its price point. But I always never get this like feeling when I listen to it that the person's voice sounds like realistic. They always sound a little bit kind of, I don't want to say garbled, but like they kind of, if you're looking like a picture and you're looking at like 4K, it looks very, very clean and clear. Versus if you're looking at like 1080p, it's just not as clear. And that's kind of how I define the kind of resolution of the 58X. The 58X just sounds like 1080p. Like it never can kind of push past that barrier, in my opinion, to give you the sharpest like sounding sound that sounds realistic. And that's kind of how I think that's the limiting factor. Versus like, I think this headphone, the He-6 and the XS, the resolution is like 4K. Like everything just sounds like crystal clean and clear because it just has such a great resolution. And because of that, I do think it kind of adds to its realism. Like it definitely sounds more realistic when I listen to these. And I think because they're also wider and bigger sound stage, they sound less like headphones because they're able to sound wider with the bigger sound stage. When I listen to these headphones, I really feel like I'm more in the room with the musicians and they're like right next to me because of that difference in resolution. And I think a lot of my friends who try this headphone also think the same thing. Like it just sounds like you're there is the way people say it. And I think that's like just pure resolution. It has nothing to do with like, small differences in tuning. Like I think that's kind of the next plane. Like if you hear resolution that great, that's what it sounds like, in my opinion. I think these two headphones do that really well and kind of make them kind of above and beyond this headphone. So really, to wrap it up, in conclusion, choose each of these headphones based off the attributes that you want. This is like, for the price point, it's really good. It's lightweight and it's the best tuning, right? This headphone, big, vast sound. It's honestly good value for its price if you compare it to other planars that can even compete with this headphone. Like it just sounds big like speakers. And then this headphone has really good tuning, but it also sounds pretty wide. And I think it's the happy medium of these two. So choose whichever one you like the most. So yeah, I hope this conclusion helped you guys choose which one you guys would choose out of these three. As always, like and subscribe down below. Helps my videos out. I make more tech reviewed headphone reviews here all the time. So you guys don't want to miss out on that. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.